Nice to meet you. I'm Dr. Kim from Michigo.
Hello, I'm Kim Ki-won from Richgo.
They announced that people who own villas valued at 800 million won or less will now be recognized as homeless. Let's discuss what the new criteria for recognizing the homeless announced by the government means and what kind of impact it might have.
The villa market is really tough right now.
Right.
So a lot of villas are going up for auction, and the rental fraud issues are making the villa market really tough now. So it seems like these policies have come out in relation to that. If you look at it, in the metropolitan area, it's for properties with a usable area of 85 square meters or less. So that's 30평, 30평 and below. Assessed 500 net tax basis, market 700, 800 meter. Villas below this are homeless for housing. Then, if the public offering price is 500 million won, the market price is approximately 700 million to 800 million won. Even people who own a villa below this price recognized as non-homeowners in the subscription system.
But in fact, I interpret this to mean that most villas will be included.
Most villas will be included.
That's right.
But I feel like this will just increase the competition for housing applications.
I think it's going to go up a lot.
That's right.
So there are really people who don't have a home. For those people, the number of competitors increases when they apply for housing. So from the perspective of actual homeless individuals, this announcement might not be all that welcome.
It might be nice, but maybe not. But if we look at this very coldly, there might be people who own villas. Are they wealthy? Could they be wealthy? They're probably very well off. There are villas in Seoul. A market price of 700 to 800 million won is really quite high end, and the kind that ordinary people live in is different. It's really cheap. 200, 300 million, 100 million. Are those people applying for apartment housing? I don't think it will be easy in the end. I feel like this is a policy for those who already have something, because they might have a somewhat nice villa. Even 700 to 800 million won is a really nice villa. But these people also become homeless, so they can apply for housing. And since they are considered homeless, they can buy an apartment as well, right? That could be the case. And if you look at it, non-apartment housing includes single-family homes, multi-family homes, and urban living housing. So the question is whether apartments will be considered as applications for the homeless or not, and that will determine the status of the apartments. Previously, it was for exclusive areas of 60 square meters or less, the public price of 76 million won or less. There are probably apartments like this in the metropolitan area, so it's very small and compact. And if the public price is 160 million won, then the market price would be around 250, 300 million won. Apartments below this threshold, like in the provinces, those that are 60 square meters or less, with a public price of under 100 million won, are not considered housing. They're not classified as apartments. These people come homeless, so they can apply for housing. Non-apartment housing has been revised this time. So it's 60 square meters, but they raised it to 80 to 60 million won to 500 million won, 60 square meters to 85 square meters in provinces, 100 million won to 300 million won.
So the standards for the metropolitan area and the provinces are a bit different. That's right.
Well, the apartments in the provinces are also around 300 million won compared to now.
Exactly.
Right? So, for the most part, they just opened it all up, the provinces.
This time, there have been a lot of questions about the criteria for recognizing villa non-homeowners. Please summarize information that the beneficiaries are curious about.
So first, it's important to clearly understand the scope of non-apartment housing. So, multifamily homes, multi-household units, row houses, single-family homes, and urban cooperative housing are all collectively referred to as villas. So, this is the case, then it works. So, only one non-apartment housing unit is recognized. What about if I have two units? I have two villas. It means that it will be recognized as housing.
If you have two villas, one will be recognized as homeless, but the other will just be recognized as a housing unit. That's right.
That's right. This is the case. You only have one villa. So if I become recognized as homeless, can I apply for the first-time homebuyer or special supply for newlyweds?
I'm curious about this.
That's right. But what does it say? The villas that meet the criteria are considered as having no house at all, so they are viewed as homeless.
That's possible.
It's possible. This is really good news for those who are trying to apply for first-time homebuyer or special supply for newlyweds.
I think it would be great if we can make use of it.
Exactly. I have a villa, so this could happen, right? I have a single-family house in the countryside. There are actually quite a few cases like this. But if my parents testified for this, I was really just ignoring it because it's a completely falling apart house. However, since it's registered as a housing unit, situations like that can definitely lead to tax issues. But what is this? All of this gets excluded. Let's be a bit more realistic, right? So next it says, is it possible to get a loan, like a first-time loan in the world? So, what does it say about the loan?
It follows the regulations separately.
So, who makes that judgment? It seems obvious for financial institutions. Go to the bank and get a separate confirmation. So, this is what we're talking about right now.
So let's say I owned a villa, then I sold it, and then I bought it again. I bought villa again. So, from the point of that purchase, do I become a non-homeowner? Or do they recognize the period I previously owned the villa? There are a lot of questions about the holding period. Depending on how long I've been a non-homeowner, my score changes. So it's a really important point, right? I'm really curious about this.
The length of my time as a non-homeowner affects my score. So it's a really important point, right?
I'm a bit curious about this.
Hey, why has your skill improved so much? At first, we're just doing that. That's a significant improvement. Let's take a look. I think this is a really important point. Whether the holding period of the villa, recognized as being a non-homeowner, even if you bought or sold a villa before the implementation, if it meets the revised requirements, it will still be recognized as a non-homeowner. So when exactly does this take effect? It's going to apply from apartment complexes that announce recruitment for residents after December 18th.
This house has already been applied. Since we're filming on December 19th, it has already been in effect since yesterday.
So this is recognized as being a non-homeowner, but let's say I owned a villa for 5 years and then sold it. I applied for housing after a year. So what does that mean? The period of being homeless while is recognized as 6 years when you add the 5 years of owning the villa.
So they're saying that even if you owned a villa, that period will now be recognized as being homeless.
So I didn't have any house at all. And then I bought a villa. So I had a period of 5 years where I didn't own any house, but I bought a villa for the first time and held on to it. For 5 years, then sold it a year later. So that's a total of 11 years of being homeless, right?
The score indeed goes up significantly.
That's right. So the period of being homeless increases, which raises the score. I think this is a number that people would like. So next, does this also apply to public housing sales? Does this also apply to public housing sales as well as private sales? What does it mean? It applies. So, turns out that the regulations for being homeless apply not only to private housing, but also to public housing.
Looking at the content of this announcement, as far as I know, it was originally supposed to be announced in November, but I heard it got delayed by a month. Anyway, they announced it. But I feel like this content is an effort to revive the villa market, which has been quite stagnant. I'm really curious about what the actual reactions are.
I think this could be possible. For example, I had a villa in mind that I was looking at for redevelopment to get the drop, but the moment I buy it, number of houses increases. So there must have been cases where people couldn't do it because they didn't like it. There are definitely cases like this. But now what is it? I bought villa, but what am I? I'm still homeless.
Isn't it correct to say that you're aiming for redevelopment? For those considering redevelopment, this is actually a really good expression.
That's right. So revitalization of the villa market can help with the activation, right? But the market reaction is said to be quite lukewarm right now. This is about non-apartment buildings because people already don't really like villas.
Because of rental fraud?
That's right.
There's that. And there's also the discomfort about living there, like the lack of a community.
So, non-apartment market normalization and the apartment solution phenomenon will become more pronounced. Why? Even if I have a villa, I'm considered homeless, so I can apply for housing subscriptions. And as we talked about earlier, they apply a lot of various benefits. And there's a really interesting point here. Some people say, if you have 800 million won, why would you buy a villa instead of an apartment? That's a valid point. Still, I wouldn't buy a villa. That's a fact.
I have nothing to say.
You only gain eligibility for housing subscriptions, but you shouldn't fall into the trap of thinking that other taxes or policies are exceptions. When the administration changes, we can't know how the policies will change then. They say they're discussing things like this. So, conclusion, even if they do this, I don't think it's going to make the villa market suddenly improve a lot.
So I think it will definitely have an impact on the housing subscription market. I think the intensification of competition rates will be the biggest issue. What do you think? It could be negative.
I think there might be some people getting angry, but why that? But I don't think the numbers will be that high.
The number of people who can apply for housing is limited.
First, you can expect an increase in housing application demand and intensified competition. Right. These people were originally homeowners, so they couldn't participate. But now that they are recognized as homeless, they can join the new apartment application market. So the competition will definitely intensify. Next, there will be a surge in demand for small to medium-sized apartments. Because people who live in villas generally tend to live in smaller units. That's right. It's small to medium-sized. That's right. So there's a high possibility that people will prefer to move to small or medium-sized apartments. So this could lead to an increase in competition rates for small apartments.
So this is an alternative created to revitalize the villa market. But as you mentioned earlier, you said it probably won't have a significant impact. Still, even if it's just a slight change, there can definitely be some kind of transformation.
There will definitely be positive effects. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, I've talked about this before, but the villa market has become so cheap that even if I take out a loan and buy one, as long as it generates some rental income, it seems worth a shot. But what about that? There's also the redevelopment news.
I think that's the biggest point.
You might think, I'll hold it and collect rent. Villa transactions will rise. But the moment you buy another one, it becomes a property. So I think the existing villa transaction volume will increase. Those who are able to sell their existing villas to secure a housing application contract will benefit from this. So what does that mean? So the number of urgent sales is decreasing. There's really no need for me to sell the villa I have. Because of that, there's a possibility that the villa market will show some stability. Right. On the other hand, there will be negative effects as well. The demand for new villas is likely to decrease. Why? As villa owners gain eligibility for housing without owning a home, their motivation to purchase new villas will naturally decrease. So, it may have a negative effect on the new villa supply market, and the demand for villas itself may decrease slightly. I think you can analyze it like this.
Maybe not everything will give positive capabilities, and there will be both positive and negative aspects. But I hope that this alternative will be helpful to the real users. The revision of the criteria for recognizing non-homeowners is not just simple policy change. I think it might be a good idea for you to take advantage of any opportunities. Could be useful for you. If you enjoyed today's video, I would appreciate it if you could like, comment, and subscribe.
I'll wrap up today's video.